Well, welcome to today's episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. Here it is on the eve of New Year's Eve as we end up 2021. And today, as you can see, we really don't have a special guest. We're going to be your guest today because we have a really deep subject matter that we're going to delve into that we think could be a big issue for many, many companies. And I'm going to draw upon one of the books that I recommend in my coaching practice. And there are several, but this is a book by the name of Traction. So we're going to deal with one specific area. So think of this kind of like a book club today, maybe. But if you've never read Traction, I would thoroughly suggest that that is a book that you as a manager, you as a business owner should be reading and taking advantage of. Cheryl, what's your thoughts on today's subject matter?
Well, you know me, I'm always into the personalities and things of people, and that's one of the things that makes our program today so important is it is, putting the right people in the right seats. I mean, the old thing we used to talk about, the wheels won't go round and round if we don't have them right. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So, Brandy, what about you? What's your deal? What do you think? What's your thinking on today's subject matter?
I mean, I'm excited because I know that I've made, I tell everybody all the time the only way I can teach is because I've already made all the mistakes and I've made the mistake of having the wrong person in the seat. So I'm excited to discuss it.
That's it. So, today's subject matter is going to be the right person in the wrong seat. So, stick around with us. We'll be right back and we're going to dig really deep into this one today. So, welcome back with us. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about the right person in the wrong seat. And this is something that all three of us encounter in our coaching practices. And Cheryl, one of the things she does, it's her role to locate people for the right seat. And we're going to talk about some of the things today that Cheryl goes through in order to put that person in the right seat. But listen to me for just a minute. You know, the primary listeners of our broadcast are going to be home service providers, home service contractors. And this means that they usually in the field have two type of people. One of these is going to be a person that does sales. Now, this could be a technician doing service, or it could be doing chimney sweeping, or any number of cases out there of service work. And what we do is this person is also has an expectation to be a salesperson. Now, the other side of the coin is often you're going to have production people. And what do production people do? Those are the ones that do the installations. They do the repairs. They do the chimney relining. They do all these different things. And here's the big thing. You can have an excellent, excellent salesperson that is not a good technician. And we see this often that people are wanting their technicians who are super technically astute to be salespeople. And it's not within their realm, it's not within their skill level, and it's not within their expertise. And it's what they really don't want to do. So, Cheryl, I'm going to go to you first. You're the expert in human behavior patterns, you're the expert in understanding those behavior patterns. And even further, you even watch television shows to help you in this because, ladies and gentlemen, she loves to watch a show called Criminal Minds, which is behavior assessment by the FBI. So, Cheryl, what's your point on this right person in the wrong seat?
well, there's personality traits that work better in some seats. Some people are not, as you said, their personality doesn't lead them to be a salesman, or their personality doesn't lead them to sit like we're doing in front of a desk most of the days. Their personality leads them in a hands on working environment. And so we each have our own traits. We each like to do things. Some of us, like myself, I would much rather my trait would be to be out in the field working, but somewhere along the age line, that didn't work anymore. But as long as you can look at a person and see what their personality traits are and just like with the criminal mind, like you brought up, they use the personality profiles that they come up with to catch the police or catch the bad guys. So, what's any different than using the personality profiling of a person to understand where you need them? And if you can get them in the right seat, so much better.
There you go. So, Brandy, what's your thoughts to start this off today?
Well, just to kind of piggyback on what Cheryl said, that's why I think behavioral interviews are the best. I only do behavioral interviews because I like it that you can get a sense. You want to hire somebody that shares your company's core values. And through questions on the behavioral interview, you can get that. I mainly deal with the office side of things. And so if I'm hiring a new CSR, I'm going to want to hear their voice on the phone. And I'm not going to want to hire somebody that sounds really grumpy on the phone. They're not going to be in the right seat. That's not the right position for them. They shouldn't be near the phone. If I'm hiring an office manager, I'm going to ask them, how many days were you late to work last year? How many days did you miss last year? If they say they were late 3 times for my company, I don't want an office manager that was late 3 times because I expect you to be better than everybody else and be here on time.
That's it. So I'm going to read this out of Traction. And Brandy, you just hit part of this. The right people are the ones who share your company's core values. They fit and they thrive in your culture. They are people you enjoy being around and who make your organization a better place to be. And see, that's what a lot of it is. And like I said, you just hit the key thing. You could have, let's take an example of what you just said. You could be interviewing someone for a receptionist position. And I often hear this when I walk by Cheryl's office and she's interviewing someone. And I'll stop and I'll kind of listen outside her door a little bit. And sometimes I'll even write her a note, who's that for? And she'll tell me. And I said, there is no way that person can make that employer happy. It's a place that they got to be. I can think of examples right now of great workers. I mean, really fantastic, hardworking. They're there every day. But Brandy, they cannot compose a conversation. They cannot compose an email. They cannot compose a text the proper way. The reason being, they simply don't have the communication skills that's required to be successful. So, Cheryl, in your interview process, how do you determine that this person is going to fit the bill? Because one of the things you do is for a client you're hiring for, you pretty well know from interviewing them, talking to them, what they want. And we know the behavior pattern that will match because usually we have a disc done on that employer. Am I correct?
I have it done on all my employers. The reason I do that, other than I know them anyway, I mean, sometimes if your brain's not kicking in one day, it's always something to drop back on. And plus, your core is different from what you present a lot of times. So I need to match their cores, not their presentation skill. So that's where it comes in a little bit different by knowing the disc, is because I know what they truly are and I know what they can mesh with. You do not, it's like a husband and a wife. A lot of times you look for that yin and yang that you marry. You want somebody totally different. You get married and to this opposite person, and then you spend the next 40 years trying to make them just like you. And so marriage works marriage. I hate to say it. So you have to get the personalities that balance people out. They don't need to conflict with them. They just need to balance them out.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I was listening to Tommy Mello, who is one of our speakers at our event in February, our Home Service Success Summit on February 7th. And Tommy was saying the following. He was answering questions in an open podcast for him yesterday. And he said, I don't want to hire people like me. I don't need more visionaries. I'm visionary enough. So hiring someone that matches my personality is not in the best interest of the company. And I think a lot of times that may be what's happening. People gauge a new prospect of, well, do I like them or not? So, Brandy, what's your input on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that hits the nail on the head. Jerry, I don't know if you remember, it's probably, it's been probably 3-4 years ago now. You and I recorded a podcast, and it was called, I think it was called Smarter Than Me. And the whole premise around it was, I want to hire people that have the skills that I don't. So like, I'm not good at Excel. So I want to hire people that are good at Excel. And I think the problem comes in sometimes when the business owners are threatened by that. And I don't know quite why they're threatened. Cheryl could probably tell us more on the personality, but they get threatened. And so then they end up hiring the wrong people. Also, just expectations. I think, especially in our industry, it's tough. Let's say we're hiring a chimney technician. Yes, we can do a job shadow with them, but we can't possibly show them everything that they're going to do in their career there. So we need to really explain that well, explain what the expectations are. My company has expectations that are different from the company that they came from, and make sure they know what they're getting into, so that, because it's not just about them being in the right seat, it's about them being happy there. We've got to be happy and they have to be happy. It's mutual.
That's correct. So I'm going to read out the book again, and has a heading, Right Person, Wrong Seat. In this case, you have the right person, one who shares your core values, but he or she is truly not operating in his or her unique ability. The person has been promoted to a seat that's too big, has outgrown a seat that's too small, and has been put in a position that does not utilize his or her unique ability. Generally, this person is where he or she is because he or she has been around a long time. You like him or you like her, and they're a great addition to the team. You believe that you were helping this person by promoting him or her to this existing seat. In actuality, you were hindering his or her growth and the growth of the company. Your job in this situation as a manager is to move this person out of that seat and into a seat that is right for the person, or one where he or she will be successful. And I know, seeing this, I can see this. I visualize people right now, Brandy. Do you visualize people that go through this right now that we have within our client base? This is a big challenge. So, Cheryl, as you hear this about the right person, the wrong seat, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, let's just take it to an analogy. All people aren't the same size. All people's pants fit different sized, and also their job qualities fit different ways. And if you take someone to a seat that's too big for them, number one, they're going to end up, they won't accomplish what they were doing. They will start falling behind. The jobs won't get done, or if they do, they won't get done correctly. Then you get upset, they get upset, and before you know it, you've lost a person that, had you not altered their size of a seat, would have still been that great person that you gave a boost up to. It's the big seats are not always the best seats for people. I mean, like Brandy said, and I'm going to qualify your question, Brandy. You said something about getting upset, like when you're talking about the Excel. Part of that is people know more than you do. You get a little antsy. It's like, are they going to start taking over this? Are they going to do that? How am I going to be able to check after them if I don't know how to do it? You've just got to back up, keep your eyes open, and let them try, because you never know. If they can't do it, then it's time to take them out of that seat. But if they can, I mean, I would love to have a whole crew of people that knew everything I did. And we just don't find that often.
Yeah. So, Brandy, what you're thinking on this right person, wrong seat I just described and read about?
Well, I think that's where Cheryl's disc comes in so handy. In my office, I have every letter. I have a D, I'm the D. I have an I, an S, a C. I think it's 2 S's I have. There's 2 of 1 that I have. But so it's a perfect combination because we all balance each other out. We all have different skill sets. We all have different ways that we like to do things, and nobody's competing, if that makes sense.
Yep, got you on that. So let me ask you this. You just said you're a D and you have 1 D. Do you and the D clash at times?
Oh, sorry. I probably confused you. I'm the only D.
You're the only D.
I
Okay.
think we
So
probably couldn't work if there was another D.
okay, so and that's why Cheryl and I, who are both D's, our offices are on separate floors. Okay, there's a staircase right over there that if I wanted to see her, I got to walk up or she's got to walk down. So we're each in our own world here in the CVC world. So I'm going to keep going. There's another paragraph here that's also very important because if you're a manager, this means sometimes you got to make some really difficult decisions. Assuming that there is such a seat, and most of the time there is. The problem is solved once you move the person. Unfortunately, and this is small business, okay? Sometimes there is no seat and available. In this case, you may have to make a very difficult choice. You have to make decisions for the greater good of the business, and you don't have the luxury of keeping people around simply because you like them. If this is the case, you must let them go. This will be one of the toughest issues you will have to face. Once the change is made, the company is always better off, and usually the person is happier in the long run. And Cheryl, when I read that, that reminds me of something that Larry Wingate shared with us in a coaching meeting we were in one time when he said, sometimes you have to fire people. And the reason you're firing them is to grant them the freedom to go find something that will make them happy. Because many times they cannot make that move because it's tough. Change is hard. So adapting to that. So when you heard me read that other paragraph, what was your thoughts, Cheryl?
Well, we always have people that you grow to like after they've been there for a while. And yeah, it's hard to fire them. But either, there's two different ways. You in the book it said fire them, and that's what Randy would or that he would do. But maybe there's a seat that they are better, professed at. But the person has to you have to have 100% of the correct people in the correct seat. That doesn't mean you have to have 100% of people in seats. So, but you need 100% in the correct seats. We all have extra office jars that we can use that we can place other people in. But if you don't get that 100% of the top people in, it's going to be very hard to keep it moving on. And we all know that if you've got a bad apple in the seat, the company's not going to grow. That's a stalemate for it right there.
Right. So it's making a hard decision, but also you got to understand this is small business America. And like I said, Randy, you've got a pretty full staff. Just creating another seat is not financially in the best interest of the company, and it's not where you got to go. So sometimes you have to make this decision as the leader. And that's where the toughness of being the leader, the difficulties in that job. So Randy, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah. When we've had to terminate people in the past, we always use the term set them free. And we let them know that we're setting them free because this isn't the right place for them, but there is a right place out there and they need to go find it. I remember when I first started with Blues Brothers, we had this kid. I loved him. He would come in every morning, super happy, smiling, always say hi, always say goodbye. Just the nicest, most wholesome kid you could find. But unfortunately, the technicians were complaining. They had taught him things over and over again, and he couldn't pick up on it. He couldn't grasp the tools. And so we had to make the very difficult decision. That was, sometimes you fire somebody and you're like, thank goodness they're gone. But, these people, you hate to fire them, but you have to. He's now doing something with the church. He's extremely happy. And you're right. He might have, had we not set him free, he would have been maybe afraid to make a move and tried to stay there and make it work. And then he's unhappy and we're unhappy.
Yeah. Now, the other side of this is the wrong person. And this is what Mr. Wickman says in Traction. Wrong person. In this case, the person excels at what he or she does, is extremely productive, and clearly in his unique ability. What makes this person the wrong person is that he or she doesn't share your core values. While this obstacle may seem like something you can live with in the short term, the person is killing your organization in the long run. He or she is chipping away at what you're trying to build in little ways most of the time that you don't even see or notice. It's that very right comment in the hallway, the dirty look behind your back, and the dissension that this person spreads. And this is something we often see in companies. So, Cheryl, what about this wrong person? What's your thoughts there? How do you spot the wrong person in your interview process?
That was the hard one because they have all the qualities, they have everything that's needed to do the job. That's where the behavioral questions come in, because yes, they can add all the numbers, they can write everything you need, but if their behavior skills do not work within your company, and the thing about it is, a lot of times the leaders are not the one that leadership's not the one that sees it. It's your other employees. A lot of times you'll have after somebody has been set free, as we call it, everybody else comes up to you and says, "What took you so long?" So, the question is the leadership being able to see it? But in the interview process, you can't just ask, "Can you do Excel? Can you do this? Can you do that?" You need to know what kind of a person they are. A lot of the questions that actually you're not able to answer or to ask until you hire them are some of the ones that you really need to know. So you just have to work them around so you can get the feel for the person. For me, that's why I do Zoom interviews. I can see the person because I'm hiring for all over the country. So I can see the person, I can see their attitude, I can see some of their living standards. I mean, a bunch of beer cans behind them probably doesn't qualify them for some of my companies. So that's one reason I do it. And I do it as a very laxed interview. That way they get free to talk about the fact that they went out and partied the last 6 nights in a row.
Well, maybe you relax them too much. I remember you telling me one guy that took a toad on a joint one time in the midst of your video interview. Am I correct?
Well, I'll just tell that really quick. One of my questions is, we do background checks and drug testing. And are you okay with either? And his answer was, "Yes, ma'am." And let me go back and tell you, his resume was perfect. I don't think he wrote it either. But he said, "Yes, ma'am, my record is totally clean." He said, "But I will tell you, I do like to do my weed."
So,
So
Brandy, if that occurred to you, what would you have said at that particular point in life?
I probably just would have ended the interview right then and there.
I
I
do.
think the problem, Jerry, is that some of this blame is on the company because they don't know their core values. They've never sat down and figured out what are the core values of the company. Mine hang up behind me on this wall. So I think that starts part of the problem. One of the questions I like to ask in the behavioral interview is I'll ask them, who was your favorite boss ever and why? And who was your least favorite boss and ever and why? So for example, on their least favorite boss, if they say, "Oh, it was Mike, and the reason is because I had come in late 15 times and he fired me." Well, you're not going to fit in with our core values because one of our core values back there is punctuality. So at the same time, if they say, their best boss, they liked him because they were fair, they treated everybody equally, they had good processes in place, you're probably going to meet our core values.
Got you covered. And speaking of core values, Cheryl and I have a friend that I've done some work with, and he runs a restoration company in Charlotte. And when you talk about the core values, he has them put on a big 4x8 sign in his warehouse. So every day when the guys go out, they're walking out this door outside with this 4x8 sign up above it with the core values of his company. And he runs a very, very successful cleaning and restoration company. In fact, he's done jobs for us from flood damage, and it's been immaculate. So going further, what does Mr. Wickman recommend? As a manager, he says, you got to become a people analyzer. You got to do that. And he said, I often observe my clients discussing people issues in terms that were very subjective and unproductive. And we go through that in our coaching exercises and our discussions also. So I got to agree with him. They often never really resolve their people issues. And when they did, a process took twice as long as it should have. Out of necessity, I created a tool to make such discussions more tangible. So, what he says is these are the things that he checks in the people analyzers. Be humbly confident, not cocky, but humbly confident. Grow or die. Help first. Do the right things and do what you say. And that's what the tool that he designed here. And it's kind of like a chart that marks the people into it in the book Traction. And when you look at it, that reminds me of Larry Winget. And one of the things that Larry Winget drummed in our heads and the whole time that we were in his program, which is do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And I think that's how you gauge your people. Are they people that are making excuses, or do they deliver? Do they deliver on the product, or do they deliver to you an excuse? And if you got people that are delivering excuses, you got a problem. And again, it goes back to those hard decisions of somebody's going to have to leave. Now, I will tell you something. That little lady on the bottom of this screen cares more about the human race than most people I know. I often tell her, if there's somebody out there in the street and they're hungry, she's taking them a sandwich out there. And she also told me, but Jerry, you got to understand why I do this. Well, tell me more. I want to find out why they're like this. And she's going to start up a conversation with that. So CNC, that's our friend Richard. I love Traction. You can never read it enough. Getting something new every time. That's exactly right, Richard. So, Cheryl, this people analyzer, that's what you do. You are a people analyzer. I don't even know how I've ever measured up to your analyzation of the human race, but somehow I managed to make the cut. So but has it involved change? Yeah, it has. So what you're thinking on this people analyzer that Mr. Wickman talks about here?
Well, first of all, you were and are a challenge. I think that's why I took you on. But yeah, analyzing people, to me, it comes natural. In fact, probably too natural. I do it to waitresses and everything else that I run into. But I've got to the point that I can see what people are just from the reactions, the way they walk, the way they talk. I would love to be able to have people 2 or 3 days. And part of that's why we do the ride-alongs that we do in the business, because you can analyze a person over a period of time like that a lot better than you can in a 15 to 20-minute interview. So, but if you don't analyze, if you just take them for face value, you'll have the wrong guy every time.
Okay, so folks, I want to point out something here because I'm going to give you a real life scenario that just happened that Miss Eisenhower and I were involved in. Randy, we went to a restaurant. We go to a place down in Mount Pleasant, and we go there to dinner. It's just a little country dinner, great vegetables, all that kind of stuff. Yes, I probably have a little cholesterol there, but just deal with it. But about a week or two ago, we were sitting there. And at the table next door, and Cheryl said, you got to check that kid out. I said, what's he doing? She said, just look. He had ordered a baked potato. Now, when he got this baked potato, I don't know why he didn't order mashed potatoes. There must be some special flavor in a baked potato. Because, Brandy, this kid cleaned this potato out of this peeling. I mean, he is scraping it out onto his plate. And he probably spent 5 minutes turning it into mashed potatoes. I mean, this is just going on and on and on. Like, what is it? What's in his mind? So, Cheryl, what did that tell you about that person?
Other than he liked mashed potatoes, he was neurotic. I mean, I have never seen anybody that intent on smashing up a potato. But he ate like he was starving to death, but he babied that potato.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just,
He didn't baby it, he massacred it.
well, I meant eating it when he was eating it, but even he would mash it right before he ate it. But he put all the butter and everything in it, just like you would a mashed potato. But yeah, those are the things I see sometimes that I wish I didn't, because the fact I am a people watcher, you see all the neurotic things that go on around you.
Right. And it's like my friend Ken Warren one time shared a story with me, and I forget who he was talking about, but it was some very famous, very successful business. It might have been Malcolm Forbes, or it might have been someone along those lines. And he said one of the things that he gauged people on was he took them to dinner, and he gauged people if they seasoned their food before they sampled it. And that told him certain things. So, Brandy, sorry to get off track there, but that was a couple stories.
No, I enjoyed the baked potato story.
The baked potato was pretty good. In fact, we should have videoed this. We could have actually done a training tidbit out of that one. But so, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I love that you said grow or die. The part where you said do what you say, I would change that to say do above what you say you're going to do. Surprise them. That's what I'm looking for. I am not good at analyzing people. That is all Cheryl. My husband is very good at it, and our daughter has the gift. But I do not have the gift. I look more at behaviors. Are you coming to work on time? Are you leaving after all the work's done? Or are you racing out the door, 10 minutes before it's time to leave? I look more at the behaviors.
Yeah. So, and let's go further. Now, what do you do if someone is below the bar? Okay. And this is what Mr. Wickman do. Before you make any drastic decisions, he recommends that you first communicate the people analyzer results to the person and give that person a chance to better his or her performance. And I fully agree. And I think that's one of the things we don't do is we don't communicate our needs to people. And it falls between my Barney Fife motto that y'all hate, which is nip it in the bud. Okay. Y'all hate when I say that, but hey, Barney was a great person to give great quotes. Okay. So the question is, will he or she improve enough to move above the bar? Most people will, some won't, but you should give them a chance to perform according to the new structure. Now, that's going to be coming from me, and I think that everybody on this call would agree with this. We got to communicate. If we don't communicate what they're doing wrong, then to be honest with you, we are failing as managers. We really are. We got to take that responsibility on. But he recommends the three-strike rule. Discuss the issues and your expectations with the person and give him or her 30 days to correct the problem. Strike two. If you don't see improvement, discuss his or her performance again. Give him or her another 30 days. Strike three. If you still don't see improvement, he or she is not going to change and must go. When the termination finally happens, all of those who are the right people will thank you for it and wonder what took you so long. So, Cheryl, what do you think of the three-strike rule there, and how important is that communication with those people?
Well, you know me, I say all the time, communication is 99.9% of what's wrong with everything. But yeah, without communicating, you may be firing the best person that you've got. I mean, and I'm going to tell on you at this point. You used to hire people, and if you hired them for a particular job, that was the job that they were going to stay in. I watched you do that many times. You did move some around, but a lot of times, if you just move them to a different job, I mean, you give them the three strikes. In the manufacturing plant, I have different positions. Now, if you don't meet my expectations in the one position, I'll give you 30 days. I do this rule, but it's a little different for me. I give you 30 days to improve in the position you're in. If that doesn't work, I give you 30 days to do another position. But you've got to give these people time. But the first thing, they need to know what they're doing wrong. A lot of people don't know what they did wrong. They just know they got fired. So it should never be a surprise when you fire somebody at all to them.
No, I've often heard when someone is being fired, they should be expecting it. If you've done it your job as a manager, when you're having that final discussion, they should be expecting it. So, Brandy, what's your thoughts on this three strike and the communication we're talking about? How required is this, and how much do you think people are lax as managers by not doing this communication?
I am not a patient person, so waiting 90 days might be tough for me. But that being said, I always ask myself, did I do my part? Did I provide them the training they need? Did I provide them the resources they need to do their job? I think sometimes we see, even with people that we work with, Jerry, they bring somebody on and just expect them to go and do the job. Like day one, here's a truck, here's a ladder, go do it. Well, you're just setting them up for failure at that point. So I want to make sure that I did my part before I start analyzing their part. But I do agree. We use performance improvement plans, PIPs, here at Blues Brothers. So we would first start by putting somebody on that and I like PIPs because you're not only putting the problem, but you're putting the goals and what they're going to look like in what time frame. It's very laid out. Everything's black and white.
Gotcha. So let's keep going here. This is the next. This is about right seats. And this is what Mr. Wickman says in traction. Once you're confident you have selected the right people, it's important to get them in the right seats. This means all of your people are operating in their unique abilities. And these abilities are clearly in line with their roles and responsibilities. And listen carefully to the next paragraph, folks, because this is how it works. A seat cannot be created until the organization is structured in the right way so as to lift your company to the next level. To create that structure, we'll use a powerful tool called an accountability chart. This is a supercharged organizational chart. And when completed, it will help owners and leadership teams clearly grasp their roles and responsibilities. This will in turn enable them to do the same for their people. In other words, the people that you want them to lead. So, Cheryl, what's your thoughts on that?
We've always been under the assumption, and we always go with our customers at accountability because, and the charts, they're, like Brandy said in her other thing, they're black and white. There's no deviation until it's changed by upper management. And you can see what you're doing. You've got a step by step thing that you have to follow. You've got a chain of command, which is a lot of times where everything drops is in that chain of command. Everybody wants to go to Brandy or they want to go to Jeremy. There is a chain of command, and Brandy has her set up as good as anyone I know. And the thing about it is that's just the first step. If you don't hold them accountable, then you're falling down on your part of the job. You've got to do as much to help them in and bypass and move up as you can do. You can have them in the right seat as much as you want to, but if you don't hold them accountable, some will slide. It's human nature.
Yeah, we all do. And this is the thing, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but in our studies of different generations, and we hear a lot of people talk about millennials, okay? But here's the thing, millennials crave accountability. They crave this. And the people that have learned to understand, see, that was one of the big things. And Cheryl and I taught a summit a couple of years ago here in Concord, and that was what we were talking about, was how to work with the different generations, because we're baby boomers. Okay, our minds are slightly different. Brandy, you're not a baby boomer. Your mind is actually somewhat different. Now, we understand each other, we mesh with each other, we can discuss and have disagreements, and none of us get mad and go home with our tails between our legs. It's not the way we're structured to do here in our company. So but that's what you got to do. So what's your thought processes there on this?
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I do always like to remind people, because I see this happen a lot. I always remind people of the fruit tree rule. So what it is So you have your lowest performer down here, so they're the low hanging fruit. You have to realize when you get them out of there, somebody else is going to drop to that position. There's going to be somebody else to focus on. So that's why I like to tell people to focus on your top performers. Put your energy and time into your top performers that are going to make your company successful.
Yeah. So as we go through this, what I'm seeing here is, and I think Brandy has done a lot of in-field visits with field staffs out there working with officers. I've done a lot of, visits also, analysis, those kind of things. And this is a lot of what we see. So Brandy, would you agree that many times what our job is getting these systems, this culture, this accountability into place? Would you agree?
I would agree wholeheartedly. And the accountability, I think, is what most of the managers that we work with struggle with the most is the accountability piece.
It really is because they want their people to like them. And sometimes they feel like that's the secret to leadership is if someone likes you. But the thing about leadership can be a lonesome place. And it doesn't have to mean that no one likes you. People can detect if you care. I know of one client that I'm going to be honest with you, until I started working with that client, I had no idea how much he cared for his people. And since working with him, I can also see how much his people care for him. And when you see Brandy shaking her head, I know she knows exactly who I'm talking about going through without saying names to go forward. So
I've done
Cheryl,
stay interviews with his employees, and his employees have been offered other jobs for more money, and they know that they want to stay there because they love him and they love the culture there.
that's correct. Because, and like I said, I even told him the other day, I said, I was watching It's a Wonderful Life the other day. It's Brandy, I think I shared this with you in our conversation this morning. And I said, I even thought about this, thought of you as I was watching this, because that's kind of what you got. And you take these things so hard. And what you've got to do is remember, you're a significant leader. And I'm so very proud of the steps you've taken in building this company and watching what we're seeing after a couple of years of working with you. It's truly phenomenal to look at these things as we go through. And that's the whole thing. You can be that phenomenal leader. You're going to have to come out of your comfort zone sometime. But if you're listening, us, believe me, you've got to do stuff deep down inside if you want to do it. So, Cheryl, what would be your closing words on today's?
The main thing is start looking at people, not just at their face, but look at who these people are, because pretty doesn't always make a good employee. I've actually got one client that if the person's not pretty, they don't hire. But, and you know who I'm talking about. So the thing about it is you, it's what's inside the person. Do they mesh with you? Do they balance you? But not just you, do they balance your whole company? Because you're dealing with 5, 10, 15, 100 people, and this person must fit.
Yeah, but also you've got clients that do not want a pretty person.
I got those
Okay.
too.
So you got it on both realms, and there's definite reasons for this to happen. So, Brandy, what about you? What would be your closing thoughts on today's broadcast?
I'm stuck on this whole prettiness thing. I'm like, why does that even matter? But anyway, so
We'll talk about that off camera sometime. Okay.
I think I know why. I guess my closing thoughts would be, as we're headed into 2022, you want to make sure that you're going in with an exceptional team. So take a look at your team, analyze it. If you do identify some people in the wrong seat, take a look at what the barriers are, see if you are able to train them out of that or move them into a different seat, or if it's time to create an exit plan.
Right. So, before we leave, Richard said something here. I like the new CVC logo. So, Richard, this is not our new company logo. So, let us share with you what this logo right up here is all about. That logo is for the CVC Home Service Success Summit. And we have scheduled this. It's a virtual event that we're going to be holding on February the 7th. By being virtual, no one has to make any travel arrangements except just get to your your device that day. This is an event that we are holding, and the person it's directed to is going to be a home service provider. It could be a chimney sweep, it could be a landscaper, an HVAC, and I'm going to tell you what. we have got a knockout roster of presenters. Cheryl, you want to tell them about who some of the presenters are that we've got on our summit?
Well, we have Scott McCain, we have Randy Pennington, we have Tommy Mello, Al Levy, yourself, Brandy, myself, and did I get everybody? I think I did.
Right. Now, this summit is sponsored by, believe it or not, ServiceTitan, one of the leading suppliers of software. That's right. Hold the cup up there. She's a member of the Torch Network. But ServiceTitan believes in what we're doing, that they are actually an event sponsor. And the name of this is the CVC Home Service Success Summit, powered by ServiceTitan. And let me tell you something. We're putting together a program that is going to be phenomenal. And what's even more, this is not going to be an expensive thing to attend. You can attend it right there from your office. Now, one registration takes care of everybody in your company. In other words, this is made for you as the owner, as the manager, and the members of your leadership team. And the things we've been talking about here, the organizational charts, the systems, how to create this culture. When she said Scott McCain, folks, that is the master of distinction if you want to build a distinctive business. Randy Pennington, you may not recognize his voice. He is a person that Fortune 500 companies seek for culture. Tommy Mello, my God, this is the man. If you want to learn how to scale a business, Tommy is the man. And whenever you get down and you want to know about manuals and systems, Brandy, is Al Levy the guy that can take it home for you?
He is, for sure.
He really is. And then, hey, you got the three of us too. We're each going to be speaking on our expertise, and we'll try to fit ourselves in. So please put February the 7th on your calendar. We're going to be putting the registration up in the next few days. The website's going to go live, and we're expecting a bang out crowd. And we really hope you will plan on joining us that day. And with that, we're going to end today's episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. This is our last episode of the year 2021. And I want you to think about something as we go forward. Today, we can say that in business, it's the best of times, but we can also say it's the worst of times. And as we go into 2022, you're going to have challenges. The challenges are going to be numerous. It may be the supply chain. It could be hiring and recruiting. It could be the culture. It could be any number of things. It's just a challenge just to get a new truck right now. Brandy, if Blues Brothers needs a new truck, there ain't none out there. These are the challenges. Your product's delayed. And there's another challenge today, and I call it the Amazon effect. And here's what you're going through. Amazon is training your customer to get it now. Not only that, if their customer is not happy, it's not a problem. We're going to refund your money. We're going to give you a replacement. It takes you back to the days when the byword of Burger King was, have it your way. So what you've got to do to be successful in 2022, you got to be able to maneuver and guide yourself and have a strategy through that. And that's what our goal is every single week when we present this broadcast of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And that's our goal for the CVC Home Service Success Summit. Again, it will be on February the 7th. It will be a full day affair. It is powered by ServiceTitan, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. But in the meantime, join us next week for another episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And with that, have a very, very happy New Year.